Welcome to Civics Mix. My name is Susan Haig and I'm creative director of Civic Story. And with me today is Rosemarie Gelber, who had a long career as a hospital administrator. She's also a photographer and is doing some wonderful nonprofit work. There's so many strands of your life, Rosemarie, that I'm really excited to have a chance to talk to you today.
Thank you.
So let's go back to the beginning. You were born in New Jersey, born in Teaneck, and raised in Glen Ridge.
Yes.
Your father was a doctor and your mother was an artist. How did that, what effect did that have on you when you were growing up?
I think profound, actually, because I ended up taking a little bit of each as I grew up. Not that I wanted it when I was younger, but as I grew up, it was incorporated into my life more and more.
So when you were in high school, did you have any clue that you'd be ending up in hospital administration?
Zero. Absolutely zero. It was not on my radar screen, nor was that kind of career, serious career on my radar screen. No.
Did you enjoy high school or was it hard for you?
I loved the social life. The schoolwork, I just didn't enjoy it. There was nothing that really clicked with me.
So your parents then forced you to go
Literally.
to junior college, and then you ended up at Syracuse University majoring in art history. How did you make that decision?
I had majored in junior college in fashion illustration because it meant not sitting in class listening. And at Syracuse, at junior college, I took an art history course and thought, this is the best. I can sit back here in this dark auditorium and watch these pictures. And I really like looking at these pictures. So that, believe it or not, is how I ended up in art history. However, the problem was, when I graduated, it was very tough to get a job in art history. So
you found a job in...
I ended up going to New York City, and I found a job in casting, which is selecting people for commercials.
Which sounds very glamorous to
Totally
everybody.
glamorous. Everybody loved it. Everybody wanted to know about it. I met all the models. I met everybody. But after 2 years, it wasn't what I wanted to do.
And what was missing from it? What didn't you like?
I felt, for me, it was a little superficial. And it was a lot of time and energy spent on finding the right person for something that didn't matter that much to me personally.
So here's one of these times in life that you know you have to make a turn, but you're young, you don't have this huge resume experience. What did you do when you knew you weren't going to be a casting director for the rest of your life?
Well, I knew I needed money to continue to live in New York, which I didn't have. So I went to live with a friend in Washington, D.C., got some part-time jobs, and I ended up working for a temp agency, which actually was great for me. I had a few different jobs with them, and I ended up in a job at Georgetown Hospital. And I worked in radiology there because I had some secretarial experience, et cetera. And I also, so when I worked in radiology, all of a sudden I thought, this is the combo that I want. I can do some organizing. I can work with people. I loved the people I worked with in hospitals. It was a very different atmosphere. So I decided, believe it or not, after a couple of years to apply to graduate school.
Now that's amazing, because you said you hadn't been a stellar student in high school. You hadn't been a stellar student in university. What did you decide to do to make sure you could get into graduate school?
I talked to a couple of the people at Georgetown administration, and one of them very kindly wrote me a recommendation, which got me an interview. And I had been working as a volunteer for years and years in nursing homes, hospitals, all kinds of places, and I think that helped a lot. And I really worked hard studying for the GREs for a change. So I did get in,
And suddenly, in graduate school, you find that you're a student. What was it like to suddenly realize that?
The amazing thing to me was the first large project I had, I turned in, and I was doing all the reading, which I never did earlier in life, in the syllabus that you were supposed to read. And I really, really liked what I was reading about. And after I turned in my first project, they sent a postcard home at break time to tell you what your grade was, and I got an A, and I got the highest grade in the class. And I couldn't believe it was me. I just was floored, and I showed my parents, they couldn't believe it either. And I was so turned on that was boom, 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 the beginning. And I got, at the end of the 2.5 years of this graduate program, you get assigned a 1-year residency, and I got a really great residency, and it changed my life.
Where was the residency?
It was at a place called Holy Cross Hospital in Silver Spring, Maryland.
And this change then was when you were 25, 26.
Yeah.
Suddenly you became a student. Suddenly you loved reading. Suddenly you did all the reading.
Right, and all of a sudden I was making a lot of money, which was very nice for the first time in my life.
So tell us what it's like. You then worked after a year. You got hired as an administrator. What is it like to be? What was your day like as a hospital administrator? That sounds very complicated. It sounds a little stressful. How was it for you?
It's not stressful if you enjoy it that much. I think nowadays it's much more financially oriented and technologically oriented. But then it's a very much a people job. You have a certain number of departments. You're responsible for those departments, so you're meeting all day with different people, planning, organizing, looking at the patient as the most important piece of this. And I enjoyed that. I enjoyed watching people being cared for.
And at that point, was your father kind of glad that you were in the medical
Actually, when
business?
I told him I was going into hospital administration, he said, "That is the dumbest thing I've ever." So I think he wanted me to be a blonde stewardess or something. I don't know, but he did not like it. But when I graduated, after I had graduated and worked for a residency for a year, I had him come down to Holy Cross, and I said, "You have to come and walk around with me." And he said to me at the end, he said, "I am so proud of you. I can't believe it." So it was a very happy ending.
It's wonderful, and that's just the ending of chapter 1, and you've had at least 4 chapters. So let's see. So you work 4 years as a hospital administrator. You work your way up to vice president, and then after getting married and having a 1-year-old, you're deciding this is too precious an experience to miss.
I went abroad for a little bit, came back, and I worked at Washington Hospital Center in D.C., and I got pregnant and had my first child, and I said, I love this work. I'm going to keep doing it my whole life. After a year, it didn't work. I was trying to leave the hospital at 5 o'clock. My work wasn't done. The child needed, care, and so I quit, and we moved up to New Jersey, my husband and I.
Yeah. To Summit? Was it when you came
yes,
to Summit?
We did.
You
Yeah.
did? Yeah. So then when you realized you had kind of mornings free, in came a creative outlet. Tell us about that.
Well, I had, boom, 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 3 children.
Okay.
Sounds like a piece of cake, wasn't quite.
Yeah.
But then I really missed work a lot, although I knew at that point I needed to be home for a while. So I've always loved photography, so I went to New Jersey Center for Visual Arts, and I took some courses at International Center for Photography in New York.
And the Visual Arts Center of New Jersey right here in Summit.
Right, which was great.
Yeah.
And then I decided I would start a business, and for about, I think, 8 to 10 years, I did a black and white portraiture business, which I could do between the hours my kids were in school and things. So that was great. I enjoyed that.
Now, you still do photography,
I
right?
do,
I've
but
seen beautiful examples of your work.
Oh, thank you. But I don't do it for money anymore. Actually, I've morphed into another career.
Yes. So now we want to hear about this 3rd chapter, and that is partly your work with Healing the Children New Jersey, or was there something else in
well,
there
there's
that I
2 things I do. One is I run an ESL program, English as a Second Language, for recent immigrant adults to the United States. It's in Newark on Broad Street. And I have about 30 students, and I take actually interns from Summit and the surrounding area in the summers. I have several volunteers, again, from the surrounding area, and we teach adult students English as well as literacy. We have a number of students who are illiterate and can't speak English. So we do the whole spectrum.
And
when
you have high school, you can have high school kids as interns in the summer?
18 and older.
18 and older. So when an 18-year-old interns over the summer, how much time do they spend with you?
It's 3 days a week, about 4 hours a day.
Great.
But I think it's a real taste of what the world is like in a different place, and the students are wonderful.
And how long does it take to be trained to teach English as a second language?
I never had any formal training.
But for those who you're working with, you must train them.
I train them, but I train them on the job. I mean, they come in and one day later they're working. They speak English, so it's the important thing.
Yeah.
And they're enthusiastic.
Yeah. So in addition to the ESL, and what is the name of that program?
That's Bishop Francis Center for Immigration. It's a legal center.
Oh, wonderful.
It's mostly lawyers, and then I work just in the classroom. So.
And in addition to that, you've been taking some trips to
I also volunteer for Healing the Children New Jersey, which is near and dear to my heart also.
Yes. And when did it start, just so we have a background on?
About 20 years ago, my church was looking for a host family for a little boy from Kosovo who needed surgery.
And this is Christchurch
and Summit. And we volunteered to do that. It has changed my children's lives profoundly.
Wonderful.
And we've had a total of 7 children up to 2 years living with us, getting healed.
And
So
can you just quickly tell what is the process of how does the child get identified? How are they
sort
brought
of
here?
triaged or picked up by organizations. They can't find a solution. Like I was just in Ecuador, and there was a baby, a 2-month-old baby that had an eye that was dead, essentially. So they try and find somebody who can help him there. If that's not possible, eventually they'll get to an organization like Healing the Children, and they will find a doctor here who volunteers. We need hospitals to volunteer. We need a host family. And you put those all together. The child arrives at Newark Airport. You exchange passports. You take the child, and you have a child.
And you first did this 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Then.
Well, I did the last one. He just left this year. He had a brain tumor, and St. Barnabas took him. But it's really, really rewarding. And I also go on medical trips because of my hospital administration background. I just came back Saturday from Ecuador, where we do pediatric surgeries for a week. We'll take a team down, and it's a pretty amazing thing. So
when you host a child, how long might that be? I suppose it varies.
From a couple of weeks till sometimes it's months, and sometimes they have surgeries and then they have to come back in a year. We have a child who's has what's called a hairy nevus, black hairy things on her face, and she'll come back and forth and then back and forth.
And can you describe what it's like when a child comes out of a surgery that's quite specialized, and the parents are there and you're there? What is it like?
Well, one of these missions was for crossed eye strabismus, and the child, and we have all ages all the way up to 21, will go in with a severely crossed eye or eyes, and they come out of the surgery and the eyes are straight. And I think it's the first time in many cases that the parent has actually seen their child look at them the way a regular child looks at them. And it's seductive. I love going. It's really like you can watch a miracle that you didn't have a lot to do with it, but somehow it got accomplished, and it feels pretty wonderful.
So when you look over these many chapters of your life, how high-powered work, full-time work as an administrator, full-time mom, but also full-time mom plus photography, teaching English as a second language, and now hosting children. What's the dearest to you of all of those, or are they all? They're all important parts of your life.
I think the ability to be healthy, to be able to. I mean, I have enough to be able to give, and to teach and to learn, and sort of this back and forth exchange. And I think I'm always learning even from my immigrants or from these little children. I'm always learning new things, and it's sort of astounding that in the places you think you're going to learn the most, you don't, and it's these other places where, sometimes I just sit back and say, this is pretty amazing, and people are pretty amazing.
Fantastic. So. And you mentioned having a toolbox, just very, very briefly at the end. What do you recommend for students being ready for all these different turns in life?
I think I say this to my kids, stop looking for the career path to the CEO in 3 weeks. You can waitress, I was a cleaning lady, you can be a cashier or receptionist. Grab all those skills you can, whether you're paid or not, and start putting them together, because you're not going to know yet what it is you want to do, honestly, or it may not be the same thing over. And so I would grab whatever you can and don't demean anything as too low for you, and you'll be surprised at what you can acquire and eventually do with it that you never planned on doing.
Very, very inspiring. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Totally my pleasure. Thank you.
What this place needs is better graduation rates.
What this place needs is less childhood obesity.
What this place needs is free help with taxes.
What this place needs is healthy breakfast.
What this place needs is fitness programs for kids.
What this place needs is early readers.
What this place needs is mentors for teens.
What this place needs is people to join us. What this place needs is you. To donate or volunteer, go to unitedway.org.
Welcome back to Civics Mix. With us now is Reverend Gregory Davis, who is Associate Pastor at Fountain Baptist Church, and he's a Summit native, and his career has taken many turns. In this show, we're exploring life's journeys and how you make different decisions and how you go in various directions.
Yes.
So, Greg, you started out in Summit, and
Yes.
you graduated from Summit High School.
Yes.
And tell us how you decided what you were going to study in college. That's always a big question, and sometimes people don't know.
Well, I had no clue, and so I think my mother always wanted us a doctor, so I said, well, maybe I'll be a doctor without putting it together that science is very major to that. And I started out pre-med and biology, chemistry, and that was a lot. It was a lot. So after one semester, I said, well, maybe medicine's not for me. Yeah.
So that was a major nudge.
Yeah.
And so you ended up in studying marketing.
Yeah.
And what did you find stimulating about that?
Well, I think it was more the study of the mind and how the mind makes decisions on purchases and things of that nature. So that was my my real attraction, is how the mind works and how it works for people make their purchase decisions.
Did you consider majoring in psychology, or you got enough for marketing?
No, because I started out with pre-med and then I tried computers and that didn't work out well either. So I actually took a course. Was it a marketing course or an advertising course? And I really loved it. It was just exciting and stimulating, and I was like, wow, this is good, I need more of this.
Great.
And then I really began to okay, there's more I need to take, and then I have to transfer credits into the School of Management from Arts and Sciences, and so
that's what headed you. I love that about college. I hope that it's still a great place to explore and try many things,
Oh, yes.
because those signposts and signals are central. So
Yes.
somehow you got to Wall Street, and you were working as a stockbroker. Was that immediate, or?
No, I ended up, I had to work over the summer, so I walked with my class in '84 in May, but I needed 15 more credits, so I 15 credits over the summer is a lot.
Yeah.
So I really worked hard. Took 48 credits over one calendar year, which is a lot. And so when I was done in August, I just wanted to work with my hands. Well, I did that for about 3 months. I had a buddy who landscaped, and I was working, and then it got cold, and I said, I have to find a real job.
Inside.
So I made some contacts and interviewed with Merrill Lynch, and they eventually hired me into their stockbroker training program.
So was that rough and tumble? Were there some signposts there that maybe this wasn't going to be a lifelong pursuit for you?
No, it was a learning process. I worked in Manhattan, so I was going into New York every day. That was new and that was exciting, stressful. So I jumped over every hoop. And then once you complete the training, now you're in full sales, and they expect you to be, hitting certain levels, and I wasn't. So they worked with me, and they, tried to help me to get better at it. And at some point, it's, well, you're not making the numbers. We think you should consider a different career path.
So you did that. You considered something else, and you
Well-
wound up at AT&T. How
Well,
did that happen?
Yeah, well, actually, I had a friend who I was working with. He was kind of a mentor at Merrill Lynch, and he suggested a smaller firm to go to, Ryan Beck in West Orange. So I went there. The market crashed in '87, I guess it was, and so they cut half of their staff. I was in that number. I said, well, this is not going well for me. So that's where I ended up. I had some contacts that I had met, and there was a sales opportunity at AT&T, so there I go.
And so far we learned that doors close and you look for something else. And so how did things go at AT&T? There were things about that you enjoyed.
It was better. It was dealing with customers, which is good. That was a strength of mine, and selling and presenting, that was a strength. So I had some pretty good success. But after a while, 3 or 4 or 5 years, really didn't enjoy the grind, because sales is a grind. You got to make your calls, you got to make your cold calls, and you have to do all the things and you got to close the deals, and things fall apart. But it was good when it was going well. So I had some success and some not so great success. And I had a friend who was in another part of AT&T said, why don't you try this, because it's not as stressful. The sales is internal, not to the external. And so I went over there, and it was funny because after about 6 months, they decided they were going to cut 50% of their sales, and being new and not really, I was in that number, so I was offered a package to either look within AT&T further, or I could just take the little package they gave me and launch out and really just decide what it is, what I want to do. And at that point, I really embraced the concept of what am I here for? What did God put me here for? And I read a book, What Color is Your Parachute? And that really helped me to synthesize what my gifts are, what are my passions, what are my abilities. And that began to redirect me. And it landed me at Reebok because I love sports. And so sports and sports marketing, but I was still in sales. So I figured I'll do a half transition until I could get to a position that was more suitable for me. And I was there for maybe 3 months when Esther Toney came to me and said, there's a program in Summit that's being created to work with African American males, an after school program, and your name came up. And I just started working at Reebok. I can't. But you know, people say we've got an opportunity.
Yes.
Well, she really meant it because about 2 months later, she came back to me and said they're ready to meet with you, and that's when I met with Henry Keller, and he gave me a description of what it is the program was trying to do, and that book, What Color's Your Parachute, had you draft what would be your dream job. I went home and I looked at what I had written down as what would be my dream job and what the PEP program was. It was almost a perfect match.
Wow. That is amazing.
And here's how crazy. I said, I think I'm going to go work for this company. And my mother was like, how are you going to do that? You don't know if this company's even going to be there, if they're going to have benefits, if they're going to pay you. And
step of faith.
But it was because it was time for me. I always wanted to do something to help my community. And so the door was open. It was put up or shut up time. And so I walked through it, and that was a great time.
So this was the Pride in Education program, the PEP program that was just getting started.
Right.
And what was the main thing you loved most about it? How did you know that it was the perfect fit?
Working with the kids. You know, from the time of picking up the kids from school and going to get a snack and then sitting around the table, and we were really creating a family atmosphere. And so they had a place where they could come to after school, and we'd have snack, we could talk about things, and we'd have computers, and they'd have support, academic support, and then we would drive them off back home.
So it was modeling, it was mentoring, it was teaching, it was being a
family,
brother, it was being a father.
Yeah,
Wonderful.
Everything that I had, everything that I had from my mother, my father, my brothers, my neighborhood, and
you were sharing now.
Varying degrees, these young people had things, but maybe not the whole package so far as support system. So we were just trying to create a support system to encourage them that they can go to college and become all that they would, want to be.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
And at some point there was another pivot, or maybe the next step, and that was toward ministry and toward seminary.
Right.
How did that decision come about?
Well, at some point, my life at PEP and my life in ministry were running parallel. And so I accepted my calling probably before I started working at PEP. But I didn't know what that meant.
Your calling to ministry. You
right,
knew
my
that
calling in the ministry, right. I did my trial sermon in '97, so I had already started working at PEP before I did my trial sermon. So, so they were going in parallel, but I was cognizant that they could not always work in conjunction because one was going to trump over the other. So PEP was so great to me that they allowed me the flexibility to take classes in the morning.
And this is at Drew?
At Drew.
At Drew. Wonderful.
So I started in '98, I believe, and then I just started taking 1 or 2 classes in the fall and in the spring and the summer, and I kept, I'd hustle back, and work with the kids and take them home. And at that point, we had the high schoolers coming at night, so we had a night component 2 nights a week.
Excellent.
And so it was good, but then I would drop them off and I would come back to the office and do my homework.
And so now you're a full-time pastor with youth?
Minister to youth.
Minister to youth. And here we are in the 21st century, lots of challenges. What are you finding is most gratifying about your work, and what's most challenging about kids today? Are they constantly on their iPhones? Are they tuning in?
That's a good question. I think what's most gratifying is to see when young people get it. What is it? It is that God is real, that Jesus loves them, that they understand what the Bible means, not so much just the story, but how it can apply to their lives. And hopefully that they can take that and use that and inspire them to become more than what they are. So that's really like, when you see that, it's neat, but it's also, it's like, wow, the future's in good hands.
Yes.
These children are smart, they're
Yes.
sharp, way more deep than I've ever been thinking about things from a theological perspective. I'm
That's
like,
interesting.
why do you think about that? I mean, at your age, I was you
On
know,
the football field.
garnering the baseball scores and who had the best ERA and who was leading the league in home runs and RBIs.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. To your second part,
The challenge.
yeah, I think that the greatest challenge to me is that our kids have so much going on in their lives, extracurricular. You know, they're doing sports, multiple sports in one season. They're in the social clubs and such.
Do they have time to think? Do they have time to pause? Do they?
And do
Time to
they have
listen.
time to nurture their spirit? Because life is tough. Life is going to throw some things at you. I'm a witness, you're a witness, everyone out there who's watching knows that life can be very difficult. And how are you going to handle that? How are you going to process that? Or when you're forced to make hard decisions, how are you going to decide what to do?
So you need
And when you
inner
make mistakes, how are you going to get back up? What's going to
Right.
be the thing that says, okay, I'm still okay, even though I blew it? What am I
Yeah.
going to do? And so my greatest concern for young people is that their spirits are not being developed, and everything else is being developed. And so,
And we need to support that.
yeah,
Inner resources.
yeah.
In the 1 minute we have left, you were a recipient of the humor and discipline and larger-than-life figure of Nelson,
Yes.
Wilbur Nelson.
Yes.
Can you just give us one story about your principal?
Well, he was such a great man, and he was so structured and so organized. We went to camp. I never was in the military, but when I went to Camp Skoglund, I was in the military. I didn't realize it, and so he was so disciplined. But what I love about him, and I probably don't have a story, but as I was reflecting about him and our experiences, he let everyone come to Camp Skoglund.
And this is the longtime principal of Brayton School.
Principal
where
Brayton
you
School,
went.
and he has this wonderful summer camp on a beautiful lake, and he's got all kinds of activities, water skiing and sports and everything. But you had black, you had white, you had kids who definitely were special needs. His grace was amazing, and his love was amazing, and his firmness. And one thing he had a way. If you didn't do what you were supposed to do, he'd either come in the morning before reveille and he'll flip you out of your bed, or he'd grab you and at middle of the night and he'd take you up on a ride and with the other counselors just to kind of scare you straight.
And it was very effective.
But all out of love.
Yes.
All out of
Wonderful.
love, discipline and love, and yeah.
What a blessing. What a blessing. to
He's
have.
been one of the most integral men in my life, besides my father and my brothers and my uncles. Uncle Will is way up there. Yeah.
Wilbur Nelson.
Yeah, the best.
Thank you so much,
Yeah.
Reverend Davis. It was a pleasure to speak to you today, and
Yes.
blessings for your ministry.
Thank you so much. The same to you.